Hello, Raiders are 2-0. Fantasy fans, welcome on into the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your home for second round advice. It is a great Tuesday morning wherever you are listening from. We're having a good time. I'm your host, as always, Gabriel Miramontes, joined by the full crew today, Jacob Bartley, Damon Ricks, and Joseph Morsaz. Boys, how are we doing after that wonderful
Niners are all just completely injured. Man, this is the perfect NorCal podcast because we have two Raider fans and two Niner fans. But all I'm going to say is, did Michael Thomas have anything to say about the game tonight? No, he didn't. And you guys are lucky he didn't.
Hey, you know what?
Vegas, baby.
Vegas. Oh, I'm not used to that, Vegas.
Hey, yes. Can someone explain to me what's the difference between a pass interference and a holding? Because I've seen it called both ways, both times, where it's a hold and they give them 5 yards, or a pass interference. And I still don't understand the rule. And I've been watching football for 28 years.
You know why? Because he did both. He held and then it was a PI, and then he held his arm.
It wasn't even a catchable ball, bro. Like, that was out.
How do you know? That was Ruggs. He's the fastest player in the NFL.
I mean, that's the point. Like, he was slow. His progress was slow.
Gabe, they wouldn't know because they're Niner fans. They don't have anybody on their team that's that fast. So
5 yards.
What do you mean? Well, I mean, Mostert, the guy who broke
he's hurt. Come on, the 80-yard
touchdown, and
he broke his hammy running as fast as the fastest.
He ran too fast.
Anyways, guys, welcome on in. We're going to talk about all that and more on today's show. And again, we're so happy you could join us. Let's jump right into it. Major injury worries. Are you guys ready? Because I'm just naming them off. Here we go.
Just read it all off, and if we want to comment.
Here we go. Saquon out for the season. Courtland Sutton out for the season. McCaffrey out multiple weeks. Michael Thomas could play next week, but probably not. Devontae Adams seems pretty good, although he limped off the field, said he could come back. Will Fuller, Sterling Shepard, Tyrod Taylor, Cam Akers, Malcolm Brown, Paris Campbell. That's just the rest of the NFL. Your Niners have the rest of them. Raheem Mostert likely to miss a week or two. Coleman likely to miss 3 weeks or 4. And Jimmy G looking good, trending upwards. But oh my goodness, that's only offense. And we are here to talk fantasy football. But there were twice as many more on the defensive side this week in the NFL. It is sad to see it. It is sad to see it.
And there were still more. There's still lower end players we could mention,
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock,
Rashad Perriman, Darrell Williams. It's crazy. I've never seen so many injuries in one day.
Did you guys chalk it up to no preseason and bad conditioning?
I think that has to do with it.
Oh, they're probably not drinking as much milk. I'm not sure.
I wish I could play that soundbite right now. He needs some milk. Anyways, I could have, and I didn't. We missed the soundbite.
There you go.
It happened.
Good job, bud.
But yeah, let's highlight some of the big ones here. McCaffrey, 2 to 4 weeks. He says he came out and said he can beat the timetable.
I thought 4 to 6.
Yeah,
4 to 6. He said he can come out and beat that timetable. Sorry, that's why I said 2 to 4.
46 weeks.
I'm just kidding. 2 to 4. I mean, that makes Mike Davis a conversation starter on today's show when we get into our waiver wires. But it's just really sad to see. Also, we lose Saquon Barkley for the season. Also tough to swallow. And if you were high on Courtland Sutton this year, well, you're most likely down on him now because he is also out for the season. So just a lot of tough takes. Mostert broke off 2 70-plus yard touchdowns. Only one of them counted. He's got a minor MCL tear or sprain. He should likely miss a week. Coleman followed him up. I don't even know what happened to Coleman because I felt like he was in there for the remainder of the game.
Yeah, what did happen to Coleman?
Apparently something way more serious than Mostert, they're saying, where his knee is, I think they were saying at least 3 to 4 weeks. I think he's going to make a trip to the IR.
You can't catch a break.
Yeah.
That is too bad.
Jimmy G, catch a break, man.
That is sad, yeah. Jimmy G looked bad. Then you got the defensive end of Solomon Thomas and Joey. Is it Joey or Nick? Which one's on the Niners?
Joey.
Joe, see, you never know. They're just both godly.
It's Nick.
Oh.
Nick, bro, come on.
I'll just messing with you. But listen,
you
don't have a single position that's not injured, man. Not a single position. It's sad. It's
It is
sad. Niners
very
are dying down, and I hate it.
Hey guys, I'm asking for a friend. If you had CMC in a dynasty league, would you trade him?
Hell no.
Hey, I offered my brother in a keeper league CMC for Zeke, and he needs to give me a little bit more on the back end, and he said no.
Now, let me ask you a more. Oh, yeah, I know. That did make me pause for a second.
I know.
Well, hold on. Let's consider 3 options now. CMC seems highly unlikely that you would trade him, given his timetable is a short one. In comparison to this next player, Saquon Barkley.
Well,
How
and we're
likely are
talking.
you to trade Saquon Barkley in a dynasty league?
You're asking for a friend, right, Gabe?
I would.
I'm sure I am the Barkley owner, and I have made my attempts to trade Joe, and he's made some great offers. I just don't know. Like,
I would be more likely to trade him in Barkley than CMC in a dynasty. Yeah.
What was your best offer, Joe?
he threw out some really good stuff. They were big.
I think I don't remember exactly what it was, but I put out a lot. Not Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I know I put in some good running backs.
Yeah, they were good.
I would have
Definitely a
took
Kenyon
that.
Drake.
I think it was
I would have taken anybody.
I think I offered Kamara Woods for Saquon and
Adams.
Devontae Adams. Yeah.
No. That's why you. I hate you, Joe.
Welcome, a little insight to how our leagues are.
We will definitely get into that in trade targets later on. We're gonna move on now. Let's just remember to take a shot or a drink for all that we lost this week. It's definitely sad times. I mean, that's just the part of what makes fantasy fun. Great players, and when you see those great players go down, it really just puts a hurting on not only your fantasy team, but it's bigger than fantasy at that point. It's just sad to see.
Definitely.
We are transferring on over, guys, to our waiver wire. Let's get into it.
I'm ready to go in, Coach. Just give me a chance. I know there's a lot riding on it, but it's all psychological. Just got to stay in a positive frame of mind.
So, waiver wires of the week here. I mean, I know we all have our few that we're taking an eye on. I'm just going to probably start us off, as I always do. One of the first ones for me, and I quickly changed my mind, but I'm still going to go with it, is Devontae Freeman, the free agent. He's scheduled to go to New York on Tuesday and meet with the New York Giants after the loss of Saquon Barkley. I immediately regretted that decision when right before the show, I was reminded of how horrible that offensive line is for the New York Giants. And it immediately made me backpedal on players like Deion Lewis and Wayne Gallman as well. I am terrified after Saquon Barkley's injury of trusting anyone in that backfield until I see some sort of success come from it. What about you guys? Jacob, any waiver wire pickups this week?
I mean, there's a ton of options you can go. It depends what you need. Obviously, running back's going to be the big one because even the wide receivers that are hurt, they're not even out for the season or anything like that. I mean, other than Cortland Sutton, not to injury, but like even if Adams was hurt more than he was, that would be a big deal. But if we're talking about running backs, it just depends what you need. If you lost Barkley and he's done for the season, right? You're going to take a guy who has more season-long value. If you lost CMC, you need a guy who's going to carry you for the next couple weeks, 4 to 6 possibly. So let's just go with the McCaffrey scenario. I would look at Jerick McKinnon possibly. I mean, Tevin Coleman might be out for a while. Mostert could be a week possibly. And even if Mostert comes back, I still think McKinnon is going to have a role. He already has 13 plus points in PPR leagues these last 2 weeks, and that's with both guys playing. So if you need somebody to carry you for the next 3 to 4 weeks in a redraft league, then I would go McKinnon.
Yeah, Jacob, that's a good pick. And you know what? I'm going to actually take it a step further. Again, I like how you preface that by saying, depends if you need season-long value or not. If you have a guy like Mostert and you're looking for a weekly fill-in like me who lost Mostert and CMC in a league, I actually love Jeff Wilson Jr.
Okay.
And Everybody's hyping up McKinnon. I think McKinnon has more season-long value with Tevin being out. I think he's going to end up being the number 2 to Mostert. But I think for this upcoming week where we're missing Garoppolo, Kittle might not be back, Debo's not back yet, our other running backs are out. Jeff Wilson Jr. stepped up. And if you guys remember in the playoffs last year, he actually kind of was the second running back for a while. He almost kind of got more touches than Coleman and definitely ahead of Breida. And so I think that he presents more of what Mostert brings, where McKinnon has his own solidified role. So for season long, I like McKinnon better. But for this next week, you need to win your week. I'm going Jeff Wilson.
Makes sense.
Those are two fantastic choices. I specifically remember, oh my goodness, the name escapes me. Joe, who were you just talking about? Frank Wilson Jr.
Jeff Wilson Jr.
Jeff Wilson Jr. Shades of stardom last year and the few touches that he got. So that's an explosive pick that will yield high rewards because he is highly probably going to be overlooked on the waiver wire this week ahead of people like Jerick McKinnon and others mentioned earlier. Looking at the QB field really quick here. Actually, no, let's jump back to the running backs really quick. I thought Joe was for sure going to mention this player, and that's Myles Gaskin, running back from Miami. He has clearly taken a stranglehold on that backfield after conversation all offseason was around Jordan Howard and Breida, and that has clearly not been the case. They have played second fiddle to Myles Gaskin. This is the second week in a row he's out-touched Howard and Breida. He's showing some PPR floor. He had 6 catches yesterday, 14 total touches. That puts him immediately in flex value territory. I like what I see, especially from a team that's going to be playing from behind like they did yesterday against Buffalo. I mean, Myles Gaskin is worth a look for sure. And I think he's also one of those last fringe players that you can see that is probably going to be overlooked over some of these bigger names, these bigger handcuffs that are going to be taken this Tuesday on the waiver wire. So
I didn't want to jump into Gaskin. I don't want to take all the good picks, but I was going to mention if you have Barkley and you need potentially a season-long guy, I would look at Gaskin, to be honest.
Yeah. And I know we haven't mentioned wide receiver guys, but the same thing always happens, man. Julio in and out. And Gage is looking a little bit more appealing.
Yeah, well, that might have been his pick.
I'm sorry.
It was, but
I think
Joe
that was
is more elegant. So go ahead, Joe. Finish your thought.
No. Go ahead.
Hey, there's plenty of guys, bro. Go.
I thought DeMont was gonna say somebody else, so I apologize.
I have 2 guys. Well, Russell Gage was. I think a lot of people didn't take our advice last week and pick up Russell Gage when they should have, because this man got 9 targets
last week.
And he got another 9 targets and a touchdown. It's just like what Joe was saying. Julio's going to be in and out of the lineup. The Falcons are going to have to throw the ball when Gurley can only run the ball 12 times a game. And they're going to throw the ball to win. And pick up Gage, guys. He shouldn't be here next week. By this time next week, we should be talking about somebody else. And another one is a lot of people were trading for Malcolm Brown, and then they also used a high waiver pickup. And then Henderson comes out and just steals the show. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if I would waste a waiver pick on him just because we could have another situation like Malcolm Brown, but he's a guy to look out for sure.
My overrateds are Mike Davis and Henderson, just because I don't like Malcolm Brown and Akers aren't out for the season or they're going to play next week most likely. So you have a 3 committee back again. And then who knows? I'm always wrong on these things. I avoid guys like Mike Davis and then they ball out for 4 weeks. So I'm staying away from him, but
I thought that was going to be your pick, DeMont, to be honest, Henderson. And dude, he's got some potentially season-long value coming in. I kind of thought he was the surefire handcuff to Akers. And I think he's shown enough yesterday that he's going to be in the conversation moving forward. And Malcolm Brown is a plotter, dude. I don't think he's got enough value to keep around season long, but we'll see.
You guys get ahead on this. Keep your eye on Devontae Freeman. Somebody's going to sign Devontae Freeman sooner or later. It's going to happen, whether it's New York or Philadelphia. Somebody.
So where do we want him? Where do we want Devontae Freeman? Because if he goes to the Giants, do you guys like him?
If he goes to the Giants, I don't like him.
Yeah, I don't like him either.
That line hasn't proven that they can support anyone. Not even.
Did we talk about how we don't like Gallman or Dion?
Yeah, and is Dion Lewis going to go? Like, if Freeman goes there, is he all of a sudden a workhorse, or is he sharing?
It would be a committee.
Without Dion Lewis there last year, and we saw Barkley go down for 2 weeks, Gallman received all the work. But again, that was without Dion Lewis there.
Yeah.
I think it'll stay the same, though. I think whoever maintains a stranglehold on that backfield will have the complete backfield to themselves. So I don't think you're going to see.
But even when Barkley had it, he 18 rushes for negative 18 yards. Like,
one last one. Keeper Dynasty and Deep Leagues, KJ Hamler. Keep an eye out.
Love that guy.
Is that a Thanksgiving meal?
Yeah, but it's also the Denver.
Yeah,
could be the number 2 after, with Judy after Judy.
Okay. Yeah, we have to take into consideration.
How big of a bump did Font get?
Oh man,
he's top 3 tight end this year.
He got a bump.
Kelsey, Waller, Fant.
Oh wow, nice.
Kelsey, Waller, and then him.
Yeah,
I like him. I don't know if I like him.
He's the only dude.
Yeah,
and Drew Driscoll proved that he can throw the ball to him.
That Drew Block is going to be out 2 to 6 weeks as well. Driscoll came in firing, and that's how I like my backup QBs, man. You're going to come in, you got nothing to lose. You're already the backup. Go in there and throw the freaking ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've seen Fitzmagic do time and time again. I'm slurring over the words. A couple of QBs since we're on the topic. It's highly unlikely with how unforeseen it is to predict the Chargers QB situation, but Justin Herbert came in, and guys, he held his own. 300 yards passing, 1 passing touchdown through the air, and 1 touchdown rushing. Dynasties for sure. He's already off your boards. Deeper leagues, he's worth a pickup, especially if Tyrod Taylor's still dealing with that chest issue. I think it's an excuse to get Justin Herbert in the
Joe, go ahead. I know you want to talk, Joe.
Hey, I was flying home from Los Angeles to Sacramento on Sunday, so I didn't get to watch many of the football games, which kind of sucks. But the one game that was on Southwest was Denver versus Kansas City, and I'm watching that game, dude. And I'm like, "What the hell is Tyrod, bro?" Hebert looked. What?
He said Denver versus
Kansas City. Yeah.
Oh, I apologize.
You're good. Hey, believe it or not, Joe, we got people out there that are super picky about our choice.
Well, hey, he looked amazing, bro. It was a bump to the entire team. All of a sudden, he's out there making clutch passes. Eckler's getting the ball in the backfield. Josh Kelly's doing stuff.
He's taking hits too.
Henry, dude, if he's the starter, which I don't think they're going to turn back. Why?
No, they're not. You can't.
Yeah,
you can't.
They're not going to turn back. There's no reason to. After that performance, no way. And, I mean, they were in a position to win coming down to the wire. So if he stays as the starter, the entire Chargers offense got a huge bump. Literally, position by position, tight end, wide receiver, running back.
The entire lineup.
Yeah, agreed. And
because you had Tyrod playing safe to keep his job. Herbert don't care.
Oh, they almost beat the Chiefs. Like, I know their defense is good, which is part of it.
Their
but
defense is great.
He was putting up the points. Like, he was putting up enough offense to compete with the Chiefs.
And he took hits. He didn't care. When he ran for that first down,
I'm not starting him in a
stab.
Redraft league, but I'm pissed I didn't draft Dynasty.
Yeah, dude. I didn't know he could run like that. And that he put on the dude, I was like,
he's tough. And he looks like he works at a Beach Hut deli. It's like ridiculous.
Sorry, Gabe. Go ahead. I know. I'm sorry.
He does look like he works at a Beach Hut deli, though. He looks like he's like 17 out there. Guys, we're getting old. Gosh. Another QB there, just to toss out, Gardner Minshew, 330-3 last week. He's got a really nice looking schedule coming up. Miami, Cincinnati, and Houston, all exploitable matchups. Someone to keep on your radar for sure. Any other waivers, guys?
Not for me this week.
That was we touched on a lot.
We did touch on a lot. Well, then that sounds good. Let's move on to dark horses. First round fantasies, dark horses of the week. Perfect. Let's get into these dark horses. But first, let's review last week's. I'd say the first round fantasy team did a stand-up job. Starting off with Joe, his Fool's Gold player of the week was Joe Mixon. He certainly didn't do as well as people would think. And guess what? Joe predicted it. His dark horse of the week, I guess I should do dark horses first. His dark horse of the week, CeeDee Lamb. He came out, produced, looked well. 15 plus fantasy points in most fantasy formats. So great job. DeMont, your dark horse of the week. Deontay Johnson continued to lead the Steelers in targets. He is a mirage of Antonio Brown. He looked good doing it, and he's definitely the playmaker there for that team. And Jacob, dark horse of the week, Kareem Hunt. Man, did that boy come out and ball. Unfortunately, I didn't do my weight, guys. I'm sorry. I said AJ Green, and although the targets were there, he led the team 13. It just wasn't his day. Yeah, they're a good sign going forward, but he did look a little seasoned, a little too seasoned on some of those plays. Some of those plays he could have made a few years ago. So I'll look to get my head back in the game this week. Starting off with dark horses, though, who wants to lead us off? Jacob, how about you, my friend? Who is your dark horse candidate of the week?
Man, so it's tough not to mention like the same guys again from last week, but I'm not going to do that just because I was going to say CeeDee Lamb again, but I think a lot of people are catching on, but I think he's startable now. But my official dark horse choice of the week is going to be Joshua Kelly. They are, I think they're playing the Carolina Panthers this upcoming week. And let me see here. So I got to make sure on that. I think that's why I chose him.
They're playing. Who was my dark horse also, Jacob?
Oh, Jacob, well, you stole from me last week.
Just so put it into perspective, Jacob, for you. He had 23 touches.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to look at.
Although he averaged only 2.9 a carry, I mean, going against Carolina next week, that's down.
He's going against Carolina, which we saw Josh Jacobs tear up Carolina. Who did they play? Oh, Leonard Fournette tore up Carolina. And now Joshua Kelly, 2 weeks in a row, 12 carries, 60 yards, 23 carries, 64 yards. Either way, I like the efficiency. I like the volume. He's clearly the number 2 guy and kind of in a co-role with Eckler. Eckler doesn't need to look. Eckler runs a lot too, but Eckler is one of those backs where he can have a complementary back play with him, and they're both fantasy relevant. So mine's going to be Joshua Kelly, especially with all these running back injuries. Whoever picked up Joshua Kelly a week ahead is, sitting pretty right now because I think he's definitely startable.
That was definitely a great pick. That was my backup pick. It looked like it was Joe's main pick. Joe, do you have another one left in the hanger for us?
Let's go to DeMont first. I want to see if he takes my next one first.
DeMont, do you have a dark horse candidate of the week for us? I'm sure you do.
I have David Montgomery, and that's only because they're playing the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta Falcons. I'm sorry.
Hey, they're a bird, right?
They're playing the bird.
Yeah. My dark horse of the week is Trey Young. It's David Montgomery because they're playing the Falcons, and the Falcons defense is just porous as granite. So I think that would be my dark horse of the week. So I would probably bump Montgomery for my flex to my RB2. Like I said, just because of the matchup, nothing besides that.
Yeah.
Not only that, he looked really good on Sunday. He had one of his few great fantasy performances as a young star in the NFL. And he'll look to take those talents down to the Atlanta Hawks, JK Falcons, next week and do some damage on them. Joe, back to you, buddy. You got one? That's a good pick tomorrow.
Jacob, Joshua Kelly was my guy. I had a whole thing written out on him about how Jacobs had 3 touchdowns, Fournette had 2. Kelly's going to get a touchdown this week. He's going to get some catches. Put him in your fantasy starting lineup, especially if you're down some running backs. But you took that. So my backup is T.Y. Hilton. And the reason I say that is he's coming off 2 kind of bad weeks. And I know a lot of people were kind of high on him with Phillip Rivers coming to town, and he's an upgrade from Brissett. He hasn't done anything the first 2 weeks. Even in PPR, he's had less than 5 points he had less than 10 points both weeks. And the reason being is he dropped a 44-yard touchdown this week. And that would have put him kind of in the conversation for a big week. You know, he would have been up in the 15 plus. And that's kind of T.Y.'s game anyways. He's a Tyreek Hill. He's not, I don't think, going to get you 8, 10, 12 catches every game. You're hoping that he's going to get you 6 with 100 yards and a touchdown. And that's kind of a big game for him, maybe even 2 touchdowns. So they're playing the Jets this week. T.Y. Hilton hasn't really gotten going. Paris Campbell's down now. I think the stage is set for him to kind of have one of those blow-up games. So if you can buy low on T.Y. Hilton, it might not be a bad choice. But I wasn't huge on him coming into the season. But I think he finally redeems the guys that did take a chance on him.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. He's looking to cook. He's looking to make that new connection with Phillip Rivers. Yeah. It can definitely happen this week. As for my dark horse candidate of the week, I very well could have mentioned him on the waiver wire portion because, believe it or not, he is still out there on some waiver wires, and that is James Robinson, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Last week, 16 carries, 102 yards, and 1 touchdown. He takes on a beatable Miami rush defense this week. It is primed and lotioned all up for James Robinson to take the helm.
How is he still available on any waivers?
Believe it or not, it's still out there. And I just think that, going into week 1, you don't really know what's going on with the Jacksonville backfield. You have Raquel Armstead, James Robinson, Chris Thompson, who was one of my favorite players, deep sleeper picks in the season. He did catch a touchdown this week. So, hey, calm down. But I think that this team, despite, they may not be the flashiest, best-looking team on paper, but they have a will to play, man, and they've been in contention both games. They got a 1-1 record. They're going to Miami, who has a horrible rush defense. This is James Robinson backfield for the taking. I don't think you have to worry about Raquel Armstead when he comes back off the COVID-19 watch list. He looks good. He looks like a better Leonard Fournette. Similar body frame and build, and he just looks good. So I have full confidence, especially as a Saquon Barkley owner, to just plug him in as my new running back too rest of the season. He's not losing that job unless he gets injured. So I like that pick, and I hope he goes well in your fantasy. Does well in your fantasy lineups this week.
That's a good pick.
Good pick.
Good pick.
Yeah, I'm looking for a rebound, guys. I was the only one that made us look bad, so I got to get a shirt.
We can't get them all right, man. We got lucky 3 out of 4.
Yeah, we did.
But it looks bad when you're the only one.
So you need a bounce back.
We're a team here at First Round Fantasy. Let's move on to our Fool's Gold players.
You are out of here. Whatever. I don't really care. I'm just going to sit this one out.
Fool's Gold players. Let's highlight last week's Fool's Gold players. As again, Joe, you were first up. Joe Mixon, 10 fantasy points. Looked lackluster. Browns defense, rushing defense, was better than we thought, and you had said that, so thank you for that. Damon, your Fool's Gold player. Well, it was Keenan Allen, and he did have a great game, but that was before we knew that Justin Herbert was going to be
I didn't know that.
thrown into the starting lineup. I don't think your pick would have been there.
It wouldn't have been.
That.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Justin Herbert said they came up to him 10 seconds before kickoff and said, you're starting the game. That's what he said.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because Tyrod had to go to the emergency room, so.
Yeah, so I think we'll scratch that one up in the we'll just scratch that one up.
You can't count that one.
Jacob, you had an interesting one as well. You had Mark Ingram, and although he was only limited to 10 touches, he led the backfield. He had 14 or so fantasy points.
Yeah, not bad.
I think we need to constitute, because I'm willing to count that as a Fool's Gold. But before going forward, does a Fool's Gold player have a potential fantasy point count that we should consider? Because Fool's Gold players, natural, when we refer to them, we have to approach them with tempered expectations.
Okay, so let's go. I say we look at.
You pick the top 25 and then you see
15 plus fantasy points.
Well, I was going to say we go on their projections based on. So we play in full PPR and 10 points per 10 yards for rushing and receiving. So we go based on their projections. So we could just look at our Yahoo leagues and whether they're going to meet that projection or not. Basically, I think that's
legit.
What I thought about the Fool's Gold is that we look at the top 15 and 25 players last week that overperformed, and then you might have somebody play somebody like a Claypool in their flex, even though we think it's fool's gold.
That's the great thing about the Fool's Gold Player of the Week is that it could technically be anybody, because we're not telling you that these players are going to tank. We're maybe not even telling you that you should take these players out of your lineup. We're telling you that these players aren't going to get the points that they get week in and week out. Or if a player that you think is a sure thing, we think otherwise, and we're telling you, hey, you probably got to temper your expectations. But like Neon Hines, for instance, he could have been a perfect one last week. You're picking him up hot off the waiver wire. You hear the news about Marlon Mack. You're like, well, what do we do? And then boom, there you go. He gets one catch on 2 targets. It just happens that way. So that's a good thing about Fool's Gold players. I did not have one last week because I don't know. There's just something about it. I have to build up the confidence to pick a Fool's Gold player.
You made up the segment.
And I certainly will. Maybe I have one today. Maybe I don't. Damon, let's start with you. Who is your Fool's Gold player of the week?
Oh, me?
Damon.
Oh, Damon.
Oh, my Fool's Gold would be – I'm going to go with Odell. I'm not an Odell fan. I watched the game. It was a great game, but where he got all his points was from one busted play. So I would go don't chase. I wouldn't throw Odell my flex over. Let's just say this. I'd rather play Robbie Anderson over Odell. And that's saying a lot.
Skinny Robbie.
That's your worst hated player
and I despise Robbie Anderson.
That's a good one. That's a good one, Damon. He only had 6 targets, 4 receptions, 74 yards. Most of that was one play.
One throw.
And again, let's see who they take on next week. They take on a Washington team that's beatable through the air, but definitely not one of the worst air defenses.
Their front seven's good.
That's a staunch pick. That's a staunch pick, Damon. I look forward to it. Jacob, what about you, my friend?
All right, so I'm gonna cheat a little bit, and it's gonna be 2 players, but it'll make sense once I explain it. My Fool's Gold is the Houston Texans wide receivers, Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller. They're playing Pittsburgh, who has, depending on your league format, has been the 11th friendliest team to wide receivers about there. But look, and this is kind of based on my own experience. I had Fuller and Cooks in a league. Fuller went off last week. Amazing. Now I'm expecting the same thing. I didn't bench Fuller. I benched Cooks, and Fuller does 0. I know he got injured and left the game a little bit, but I'm staying away from this. Look, I think you have better options at wide receiver and at flex. If you don't, if you have to start them for desperation, sure. But until that's a little bit more clear, I'm staying away from both of those guys. But I guess the thing is, I don't know how most fantasy players think, but I guess my Fool's Gold in this scenario would be Brandon Cooks, because he had a good game, really good game, but I don't think that's you can rely on that with him and Fuller. Just one of them's going to go off one game, and you don't know who. So I guess my Fool's Gold is Brandon Cooks.
That's fair.
That's a great pick. Joe, what about you, my friend?
Jacob, what I was getting at, by the way, is that you benched Fuller week 1 for Cooks, and then week 2 you did the reverse, and both weeks it hurt you. So no, but I hear what you're saying. But mine is actually kind of like cheating like Jacob's, but I'm gonna say the New York Giants backfield. A lot of people are looking at, is Devontae Freeman going to sign there? Is Dion Lewis the pickup? What about Gallman? I don't give a damn who it is. Stay away. Do not touch a single one of those guys. I'm not. Saquon Barkley, man, that guy's probably one of the most talented running backs in the league, and he couldn't do jack behind that line. They're banged up, obviously, with Saquon down, and the offensive line looks like trash. Daniel Jones hasn't got going. I'm staying away from the backfield, even if Devontae Freeman signs tomorrow and they're promising he's the workhorse. I don't care. That's my Fool's Gold of the week.
Yeah, I agree.
Guys,
I don't want anything to do with that backfield.
3 great picks. I'm excited about all 3 of them. And you guys gave me the courage, because I'm taking the biggest hit here for my first. I'm hitting this ball out of the park for my first shocking Fool's Gold player of the week. Are you guys ready for it?
I'm ready.
He's one of your favorite players. He's on our first round fantasy podcasters league team.
Hold on.
It is Stephon Diggs, wide receiver for
What?
the
Oh,
Buffalo
hell
Bills.
no.
What are you talking
I
about?
thought you were going to go James Conner, and I would agree with that one.
Yeah.
Dude,
Well,
Diggs has been a beast.
I like it hot. I like it even hotter. They welcome the Los Angeles Rams this week, and he is facing lockdown corner Jalen Ramsey. He will likely be shadowed by him
Okay.
all game. Jalen Ramsey had players like Dallas Goedert in check last week. I mean, needless to say, Carson Wentz hasn't looked his greatest in the first 2 weeks of the season. But any play last week where Jalen Ramsey was on Goddard, whether he was on Jackson, whether he was on who's the rookie over there, Rager, he was shutting everyone down. There's a reason why they just paid this man $100 million plus. He's there to lock down players. He's up there with Tre'Davious White, opposing him next week on Buffalo. He's up there with Stephon Gilmore, top 3 cornerback in the league. I think Josh Allen is great. I don't think he's great enough to get the ball past Jalen Ramsey when it's standing in between him and Stephon Diggs. So I'm telling you all to temper your expectations for Stephon Diggs this week.
You just compare Diggs and Jalen Rager.
Yeah. I mean,
I did not.
Wait,
I compared him to the
Deshaun Jackson only knows one route. It's straight.
Jalen Ramsey
You
just
talking about Diggs?
best receiver on the team.
well, listen. I think what Gabe is saying is fair because listen, Amari Cooper did pretty good week 1 against Jalen Ramsey,
Yes, he did.
but Stephon Diggs is coming off a 35-point game, and what I think Gabe is saying is not that he's going to be trash. It's just that, listen, I hit up Shane in our league and I said, what do you want for Stephon Diggs? And he says, I'm sure you want him after a 35-point game.
Oh, my God.
So I think there's going to be a lot of people that are sitting there saying, oh, Stephon Diggs is now a top 5 wide receiver. So maybe what Gabe is saying is
Top 15.
look at him maybe as a top 25, 30 guy. You know, he is going against Ramsey. That is going to hurt him a little bit. That game should be a pretty tight game. And I'm not going to get
Cooper burned him, and Diggs runs way better routes than Cooper.
If
I'm
I
not
had
going to
to
get
put-
what he did.
If I had to put a projection out there, let's just say this. Last week, he had 13 targets, 8 catches, 153 and 1. I don't guarantee. My projection this week is he probably sees somewhere between 7 and 8 targets. He gets 4 or 5 balls for, 70, 80 yards.
Book
Probably
it down.
not.
Over 100 yards.
So
Diggs.
he's projected in full PPR
Book it down.
yards per point. He's projected 14.7 fantasy points.
Well, Damon's taking yardage. I'll do that. Over 100?
I'll do yards. Over under 100 yards. I'll take
Over under
Diggs.
100 yards? All right, let's take it. Anybody, you guys want in on this?
This one's tough.
We have to, right?
You do.
I'm going to go under. I think he does like what Cooper does, and he ends up with like 7 or 8 catches for 80 yards, which is still a decent fantasy day. Like, that's why I said he's not a 35-point guy. I like his projection of 15. I think he ends up right around there.
Man, who's guarding?
No, I'm
John
not taking a
Brown?
touchdown. I'm just taking. He's not gonna score a touchdown. He's gonna be all yards.
John Brown, bro. They have a second.
Jacob, where you at?
Man, this is so tough.
Jacob, I need you, please.
100.
Jacob, I need you.
101 yards over.
Okay.
But
Guys,
only 101.
I hope
No,
you know, obviously, some of these book it downs, you'll see the results right away. But we also have some season-long ones that we came up with in the beginning of the year, and we're going to come up with more that will also see its formation towards the end of the year. So we're going to have a whole show at the end of the year where we just go through our book it downs and we crown the book it down champion of the first round fantasy team. So that'll be something to look forward to. But as for this week, we have our first one, and that is Stephon Diggs over under 100 receiving yards. Joe and Gabe have us going over Damon and Jacob. So I look forward to that. It looks like my first Fool's Gold player got quite the conversation going. So I'm excited about it.
Silly, that's why.
Let's move on to trades, fellas. Our trade targets of the week.
Oh man.
Last week, Michael Thomas was a big one of mine. I'm sure I can think of a few here, but I'm going to hand it off to my guys first. Joe, let's hand it off to you, buddy. Who is your trade?
He's the trade master.
You know, I've made a lot of trades this year already.
I wouldn't say the master, dude.
Hey, Joe, I have an idea. Start a league where every manager has to make like
One trade a
One
week.
trade a week.
Oh, you're right. Hey, that would be sick.
That would be so
actually-
fun, dude.
That's not true because you know why? You're going to have people like me and Jacob who are like, no, No, no.
You get penalized though.
I make so much trades, man, and I made 2 trades tonight with Demont over there in 2 separate leagues. And
I
actually,
won both of them.
I think, are we talking target or who we're trading away?
Well, it can be
Either one.
It can be either one. You can have a buy and a sell. Go ahead.
My buy, which I hate because I sold him today, is Cooper Kupp. And the reason being is that he actually put up 100 yards this last week. He had 19, I think, on the ground, 81 in the air. And he was a fumble away from having a 15-point PPR game. Higbee had 3 touchdowns. That's not going to happen every week. And I think that the Rams look a lot more like they did 2 years ago than this last year. I get that they have a couple more options. They have a 3rd-round rookie that they drafted who's moving up to wide receiver 3, and he's getting some looks.
Van Jefferson.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say Jefferson. But I still like Cooper Kupp, man. He was the number 4 wide receiver all last year. He's going to have better weeks than he's been having. He could have not had that fumble, had a touchdown, and now he's 20-plus points. So I had to sell him to Demont just because I was super wide receiver heavy and needed some running backs. But that's my buy. My sell is James Conner. After a 20-point game, if you can sell him, get rid of him because I still don't trust him with injuries with that backfield. I don't like it. And it's not that I'm giving him away, but if somebody's like needs a running back after everything that happened, if you can sell him off his 20-point hot game for somebody that you like a little bit more season long, do it all day.
Yeah, I like both those.
I as well like both of those. We'll try, given that we're so running back thin in our first round fantasy league, I would still even consider trading him for someone else. Damon, do you have a buy or a sell for us? Surprise us, one or the other, or just one? Go ahead.
I have a buy, and it's at one of the most thin positions of fantasy, and that's tight end, and it's Fant. Fant was drafted as most people's second tight end. People that drafted the Kelseys, the Kittles, like your 14th pick, you drafted Fant, or your Gesicki's or your Andrews. So most like personally for me, I have Waller and Fant, and I'm trying to get rid of one of them. Mm-hmm. So Fant would be the easiest buy because he's most likely somebody's second tight end, and you can get him for a fringe flex player to upgrade from a Hooper or any tight end, literally anybody.
That is a good pick, and he's sure to see an uptick with Driscoll there. Like we said, he looked good, and Sutton out. So he looked good in the time that he had last week, and especially with Driscoll, he did most of his damage with him. So definitely something to look forward to. As someone who lost Blake Jarwin 2 weeks ago and had Jarrett Cook in there tonight, I would 100% be looking for someone like Noah.
Yeah, like say you're like strong. If you're super strong at like wide receiver to where like a DJ Moore or Devontae Parker sitting on your bench and they can't get in your lineup and your tight end's real weak, I would try and trade for Fant.
That's a perfect recommendation. Definitely wide receivers for sure. That's a good pick. Devontae Parker especially. Jacob, what about you? Who's our buy or our sell, or do you have both?
So I have a buy. And it's weird. This is kind of a new thing I've been thinking about with trades. It's like there's a guy, like, for example, all right, my buy is
I love Jacob.
David Montgomery, and I'll explain this. Because the thing is, last week I wouldn't have paid enough to get, like, I wouldn't have given up anything decent to get David Montgomery, right? And then to your league members, it's like, why are you giving that up? Like, he's not playing well. So now that David Montgomery has put up a solid game, I feel comfortable giving a fair, good value for David Montgomery. And I've been starting to realize that, like, it can go the other way. You can have a guy who you like, but you haven't seen it yet. And now that you've seen it, now I feel comfortable. Okay, now I can throw Diggs and a lower end running back to get, Montgomery and another receiver, something like that. So I think if there's a guy, because there's probably players in your league who have David Montgomery as their third running back, and you really need a running back, and you can package something to get Montgomery. So now that we've seen something promising, I think it's not like he went off for 40. If he did, you're not going to be able to get him for anything unless you ripped off in that trade. But I think he just did enough for me to feel comfortable to trade for him.
I think that's a perfect view on why trades are so important, Jacob, because you just said that he couldn't have garnered a proper value week 1, right?
Yeah.
So you could have got him for the cheap. So so if you like somebody and you watch them regularly and you know that he underperformed, trading is probably your most important asset, because you could have got that guy last week for super cheap.
Yeah, I think Montgomery is actually a good candidate for a buy or a sell.
Yeah,
because if you're one of those guys, my brother has Montgomery as his running back 4. And now he's just all of a sudden upped his value. So rather than Justin sticking around to see, is this real? Is it not? I'll admit, like I said before the podcast, that was his best game as a pro. As far as what he did, not necessarily volume, but I would, I put him in the buy or to sell. If you're a guy that's been waiting for him to do it, go and buy him. And if you're a guy who has him as a luxury, sell him.
Say you're a guy with Gallup. Would you trade Gallup for Montgomery straight up if you need our RB? Say you had Bell.
Yeah.
Say you had Bell and Barkley get hurt.
If I had Montgomery though,
Say you get Bell. Yeah. Okay, but no. But say you like in that situation where he's your number 4 running back.
Well, it depends. Not Gallup though, but like a CD Lamb or
there you go.
Like that,
Okay. I'd rather have CD Lamb than Gallup though, personally.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. If you have David Montgomery, you're asking for CeeDee Lamb or Metcalf. Or
I see what you're saying.
You're asking for more than.
No, I'm talking about prior to his big game.
Week 1,
somebody that would have traded Gallup would be sitting pretty right now.
That's a possible trade, because going into the season, Gallup was super hyped.
Exactly, super high.
That's a possible trade that could have happened.
Yeah, it probably has.
And that would suck.
Definitely some good conversation here, fellas. I'll kick it off with one more. I'm not too hyped about this guy. I think just given the circumstance of the running back personnel out there as of right now, with it being so thin, someone like David Johnson is someone that I'd keep an eye on. He's got Pittsburgh coming up next week, and a lot of players are going to be like, well, of course I'm going to be sitting this guy, because who's going to start their running back if they're not one of the cream of the crop guys against that Pittsburgh run defense? And with that being said, if you can hold on to him through that week, he's got a juicy matchups coming after that. Minnesota, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Green Bay, Jacksonville, all top 5 teams with horrible run defenses. I mean, better days are ahead for David Johnson. So if you're willing to take a shot on him, he's probably going to be buying low. He didn't have a good week this week in Baltimore. He's probably not going to have a great week next week in Pittsburgh. I would even wait one more week so he has another horrible week in Pittsburgh, and then pick him up on the low, and you got a good guy for the next 5 or 6 weeks. So there's my buy player for David Johnson. Let's go ahead, talk some keep trade.
That's actually a really good one, Gabe. I'm surprised. Yeah. I'm mad I didn't think of that.
That's a really good one.
Well, thank you. And you know what? I was going into the next segment, and I realized why I always say it so poorly is because I have it written wrong on the show notes. I have it as trade, keep, cut. It should be said keep, trade, cut.
Oh.
That's why I always fumble over my words when I say this.
Well, I wrote that, so that's my bad. I got it wrong.
Yeah. That's why we're moving on to our keep, trade, cut segment. And I had to do a lot of digging. And this is an early season edition of Keep, Trade, Cut. And I have 2 for you today, one at the wide receiver position and one at the running back position. And we'll try to get through these quick. For the wide receiver course, these 3 guys are all currently in the top 12 at the wide receiver position through the first 2 weeks of the season. That is Robbie Anderson at wide receiver number 5. On the year, who we have talked about already last week in our Keep, Trade, Cut segment.
Oh my God.
John Brown, who is currently the wide receiver 9 through 2 weeks. And Russell Gage, who is currently the wide receiver 11 through the first 2 weeks of the fantasy football season. Keep, Trade, Cut. Robbie Anderson, John Brown, Russell Gage. Damon, go ahead.
I mean, you guys know who I'm cutting. I'm keeping Gage. And I'm trading John Brown.
And that is a fair assessment. I like that. Yeah. Damon's was biased because it's based on looks, but it still ended up being a pretty gnarly one. Jacob Bartley, what about you? I don't know why I said your last
So,
name. Jacob, what about you?
Remind me, did Robbie Anderson do anything this past week? I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
he had like 9 catches.
I mean, he's the number 5 fantasy
my
wide receiver.
goodness.
Yeah, he's been
Oh,
balling.
damn.
He's been
Oh,
balling.
Teddy Bridgewater was just firing on
he
all
just
cylinders.
looked for him.
Because
I know.
DJ Moore did well too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, okay. I still don't trust it with Robbie Anderson. So
Cut him.
I think I would cut Anderson. And I think, look, I really like Gage right now, but
Keep
I
Gage.
think there's a lot of hype on him. I think I would trade him to somebody who's very hyped on him. And dude, John Brown is like the biggest bargain ever in fantasy for this past decade, bro. Like he's every year, I never draft him on any team and I play in multiple leagues and he always does so well.
Yeah.
And I would keep him because he's not a hot name that casual fantasy fans are going to trade a lot for. So I would keep Brown.
Yeah, John Brown. Sounds like he works at Staples.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Joe, what about you?
I mean, look, I think actually John Brown would hold the most value because, again, he's not a well-known name, but you're talking about Robbie Anderson and Gage. And at the end of the day, if I'm looking at their pecking orders, Robbie Anderson might have moved up to number 1. At worst, he's the number 2, and he's the big play guy. So I'm keeping Robbie Anderson, surprisingly.
Oh my God, Joe.
I'm cutting Gage because at the end of the day, he's the number 3 guy in Atlanta when Julio's healthy. And I think Julio will be healthy more often than that. And I hate to cut him because I just said he's a great waiver wire pickup. And then I'm trading John Brown because I think that, they haven't ran at all in Buffalo. And that was kind of a prediction I made coming into the season is that they're going to throw more. But I do think as the season moves on, they are going to start to get back to a little bit more of a balanced team. And Singletary and Moss are going to have their weeks. And so I think if you can trade John Brown after 2 big games, you have to do it. So that's where I'm at.
That's a great point to make, Joe. The Buffalo Bills have a great schedule for fantasy to open up the 2020 season. It does get harder as the season goes on. They will face tougher opponents. They face the New England Patriots twice, who did get torn up by Russell Wilson, but I don't think Josh Allen's a Russell Wilson just yet. And not to mention a slew of other notable opponents who they will face. I will probably keep it closer to what Joe was saying. I think I am more likely to cut Russell Gage. I will probably trade Robbie Anderson, and I will keep John Brown. Let's move on to my other keep trade cut, and this is at the running back position. All of these guys are currently sitting in the top 20 of fantasy football production in the young fantasy football season. And that is James Robinson, who is currently the running back 13 on the year. Nyheim Hines, who is the running back 17 on the year so far. And Myles Gaskin, who is the running back 20 on the year so far.
Wow.
Keep trade cut James Robinson, Nyheim Hines, and Myles Gaskin. And Joe, since you went last, I'll start. Well, how about I go first? I'm going to be keeping James Robinson. I'm going to be probably – oh, man, that sucks. Why did I go first? I'll probably cut Myles Gaskin, and I do think that there are better days ahead. Despite spending so much on Nyheim Hines, I don't think Jonathan Taylor can do it all like they say they can. There will be days, especially because of negative game script this week. I am going to be trading Nyheim Hines after another solid week in a week or two. What about Joe? Go back to you, bud.
So I'm going to just preface this by saying James Robinson is on another level than these other 2 guys.
Thank you.
But
I went off a week 2 early fantasy.
Well, here's the thing, though. That doesn't necessarily mean it's an easy decision. You could trade James Robinson for the most value.
Exactly. And so I think that's where I'm at, is that if I have 2 other running backs that I really like on my team, like let's say I've got – I don't know, Melvin Gordon and Kamara. I'm sitting at week 2. I'm looking good. I may even have a 3rd running back. Let's say Gaskin, because I'm talking about all these guys. I'm going to keep Gaskin because I don't think he's worth anything. I'm going to cut Nyheim Hines, no question about it, now that Taylor's getting the pass down work too. And I'm going to trade Robinson to somebody like Gabe, who will give me a little bit more, maybe some one of these injured guys who's going to be coming back later, somebody that needs running back help right now. That's where I'm at.
he specifically targeted me and threw out my name there. It looks like I got a few trade offers coming my way. Jacob, what about you? Keep, trade, cut. James Robinson, Nyheim Hines, and Myles Gaskin.
Yeah, man, this is tough because I think, look, we all do it. I do it. We all react week by week, and fantasy is a weekly game, just like Matthew Berry says. But don't overreact to Nyheim Hines. Look, maybe if you're our buddy Gio, man, I guess we mentioned Gio every episode, but he spent 251 of his $1,000 fab on Nyheim Hines. You're feeling pretty bad about that. But I just don't give up on him yet. If I have Jonathan Taylor in that league, if I wish I had Nyheim Hines as the handcuff, and just because Phillip Rivers loves to throw to his running backs, and he could be not as good, but he could be in that Eckler role in that offense. So for me, I guess I would have to cut Gaskin and keep Hines and trade Robinson for the most I can get.
That is fair.
Not that I don't like. I like Gaskin though as a speculative ad.
Jacob, the only thing I'm going to say here is with Gaskin, the reason I like him more than Hines is pretty much reduced down to you're going to hope
game
that
script
5 or 6 balls. Exactly. So it's 1 game script. 2, Jonathan Taylor is a damn good pass catcher himself, and he's proven that over the last 2 weeks. So you're hoping that Hines is going to see some third down work. And with Gaskin, dude, he's already outplayed Jordan Howard and Breida, the big pickups that Miami made at running back. And he's young himself, man. So if I'm looking at a guy that I like season long to be a flex play, I'm going Gaskin over Hines. But no, I hear you. Don't overreact. Don't go and spend $250 on Hines and cut him. That's not what you're supposed to do.
That's the thing. If I made that investment, I'm not going to cut him. Or if I wasted a 1 or 2 waiver wire pick, I'm not going to cut him. I'm going to wait and hope that value returns, because he could emerge in 2 weeks and be a solid flex play. And you're like, why not money and drop him,
Yeah,
that's fair. Damon, let's move on to you really quick here. Keep, trade, cut. James Robinson, Nyheim Hines, and Myles Gaskin.
Yeah. Well, I agree with Jacob. If you made that investment in Hines, you don't get rid of him. It's like buying Tesla. If Tesla's been dropping, you don't sell it. You hang on to Tesla. Tesla can come back. So, me personally, for the trade target, I would see value. And Jonathan Taylor played so well. He does everything better than Hines. So, I think Hines has 0 value at this point. So, I would cut Hines. I'm keeping Robinson because he just has long-term value. There's nobody else there. It's the better team. I'm going to roll with him. And then I'm going to try and trade Gaskin just because I feel like has the hype.
Yeah. So Damon took my route, and I think that's well deserved. But we all have really good fresh takes, and that's the great thing about Keep, Trade, Cut. You get to hear all these different perspectives. And applaud Gabe, because I think that was a really good one. It was an early season edition of Keep, Trade, Cut. Let's go ahead and look at our Fantasy Podcasters Fantasy League for week 2 results. I am so sorry, FF lovers, but we blew you out of the water. But I will say this, with the Thanos meme in the background, at what cost? Because we did lose Saquon Barkley, and that is pretty sad. We're showing it up on the YouTube screen right now. If you happen to see it.
And we doubled them up. They're trash.
I'm going to just remind you guys, I wanted us, and I think Jacob did too, for us to take Iron Man Zeke. And Damon
did
high on Saquon. You have to take Saquon number 2 in every league.
No, you do. You do, though, Joe. Come on.
I mean,
no, man. At what?
Hey, guys, listen. We can talk about this at different.
I didn't want to take Kyler Murray. You know what? I think Gabe was right, because I would have took White.
Oh, James White instead of
Kyler. And that wouldn't have been that big a difference. So yeah. You're right, Gabe.
Far, Kyler Murray has proven well. Saquon Barkley. It's just
was a great pickup.
No one could have predicted Saquon.
I had to fight for Diggs, though.
We could have predicted how bad that line was, given how they didn't really do anything to address it in the offseason, and it was horrible last year. So,
but if you remember,
you would have thought the talent would have outridden the O-line, and it did to some degree on pass plays, but never on the ground for Saquon.
Remember our draft, Diggs, man, was a controversial pick.
And thank you guys.
All three of us
Thank you
wanted
guys.
him, but Gabe was the one that went.
Thank you for not listening to
Hey,
Gabe.
hey,
Aaron Jones all offseason. I'm sorry, Aaron Jones.
And,
Hey, I
and
thought
Jacob, yeah.
too, boys.
it's early on. This is
So
the
if we
other.
would have listened to Joe
We've
and
all
took
had our
Zeke, we would be fucking money.
Our team would
We
be
would have Zeke and Aaron Jones and Diggs, and I like the Kyler Murray pick that Gabe went with. I was happy with that too.
And we got wait, round did we get Waller? 'Cause
But hey,
that's oof.
Seasons are not made at the draft. They are made in the trenches. And boys, we have a trench ahead of us now as we deal without Saquon Barkley. But we will find a way.
Lovers has a
Next
trench. We scored 95.
week's opponent, we're going down to Las Vegas, baby. We are playing
I'll tell you
Sin
right
City
now, if we win.
Fantasy Football. Congratulations, by the way, to Sin City Fantasy
Ooh.
Football on
Good
their
teams, that shit. Good
2,000
teams.
follower mark on Instagram. That's a big achievement for you guys. You guys put out great content. But we look forward to kicking your ass. Did you say their team looks good, Damon?
Yeah, we're gonna throw in Connor over.
Yeah, we're gonna throw in
Connor Barkley, and then
and then we're gonna have to start. It's a one flex league. Okay.
yeah. Hey, I like this. I like.
Yeah,
I
and
think we got him.
Connor
Yeah,
in there.
let's
We're good.
Yeah,
Hey,
for sure.
And we got the waiver wire too.
sketchy guys.
We need to make a trade. I need Joe. You got
Joe
gotta
will
watch-
work his magic. So all of you out there in the first round fantasy podcasters league, be on the lookout for some trades this week because we are looking to make some moves and take out Sin City Fantasy Football.
Yeah,
Guys, before we close out the show, we do have our viewer question of the week, and this one comes from Noah Borlick. Noah Burlick, thank you so much for contributing to the show, man. I really appreciate it. Much love. If you are a girl, I apologize, girl. It just sounds like a man's name. With that being said, now I'm going to assume he's talking about Emmanuel Sanders. This trade might be a little outdated, but we're going to still go ahead and talk about it. Let's just examine it as if it was after week 2.
Okay.
Noah Borlick says, should I trade Dak Prescott and Joe Mixon for Nick Chubb and Emmanuel Sanders?
Did he give his team?
He did not give anything about his team. This is the fun thing about
Can you repeat that one more time, Miles?
Dak Prescott, Joe Mixon for Nick Chubb and Emmanuel Sanders. And he said Sanders. I don't think it was Miles Sanders.
I think it was Miles Sanders.
No
Well,
way.
then obviously I would do that. I would take Chubb.
Yeah,
and
you
Sanders.
wouldn't. It has to be Emmanuel.
I think it had to
bro,
have been
you
Emmanuel
fucking
on the
Dak
precedent that
Prescott,
Michael
man.
Thomas was
Mixon?
lost.
Listen, Dak Prescott has running back value. So depending on the league that you're in, if you're in a 6-point touchdown, maybe you have a bonus at 250 or 300 yards, Prescott's putting up 40, 50 points.
Yeah,
So I'm going to have to assume, listen, what I'll say is if that's Emmanuel Sanders, ignore the owner. Don't even get him on the phone. That's not even salvageable. If that's a Miles Sanders and you have somebody like Aaron Rodgers that you grab because experts were down on him, do the damn trade. You need a running back and you can get Miles Sanders and Chubb for Mixon and Dak, do it all day. But if that's Emmanuel Sanders, you shouldn't. That's not even something to think about, man.
Yeah, you don't even think about that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fair
I
enough.
Because
Yeah.
it was obviously made before this week. So Dak didn't do great last week, if I'm not mistaken, but he went off. So obviously our values all messed
Even
up.
after week 1, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Sanders is a bum.
For Dak, a top 3 quarterback coming into the league.
Sanders is clearly a bum, especially after this week.
Yeah.
That shows how good Michael Thomas
is,
is.
man.
How good is Michael Thomas? You know?
Yeah, he's amazing.
I mean,
Really good.
Kamara is amazing too, but they need Michael Thomas on that team.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we were able to help you out, Noah Borlick. I'm just going to call you Noah, dude. I'm sorry for pronouncing your name. I know, right? Hey, we appreciate you writing into the show. And as always, if you have a question for us, please feel free to DM the Instagram page or email us at firstroundfantasy@gmail.com. We'll be sure to get it on the show if it's relevant and timely. I appreciate you so much. And before we go, guys, as always, check out the merch, tpublic.com. You'll be able to find us there, searching First Round Fantasy. We're on all streaming platforms, most notably Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. So check us out if you get the chance. We would much greatly appreciate it. But we're also on YouTube, so you can see our faces. So that's always nice as well. That's going to do it for us, guys. We hope you enjoyed the show tonight and the Raider victory. But we are out of here, folks. Have a great night, and we will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Later, guys.